Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the very first Red Track talk. I'm Jeanette, and I'm your conference chair for this session. I'm really pleased to introduce our first speaker, Professor and Dr. Igor Mutik from Intel Security, a great company, if I must say so. He's going to talk about economic sanctions on malware. And before he starts, I wanted to give you just a fun fact, a fun VB fact about Igor. Igor has been attending VB for 17 years, and his first talk was in 1995, and it was on macroviruses. So anyway, join me in welcoming Igor, and take it away.
Thank you. Thanks for coming into the Red Room. It looks very pretty. And if I might run a poll, who thinks that the Green Room is better? Please raise your hand. I don't see any hands. So it is officially very pretty. With that, let's start. What I want to talk to you about today is we are all technologists. We work in computer security. We build complex systems. And when we do that, we don't realize often that what we do can be done in several different ways. So we don't only solve technological problems with technology. That's what I'm driving at. And that's what my presentation today is going to be about. So who knows what that plane on the screen is? That's right. It is a Lockheed-built SR-71 supersonic reconnaissance plane, extremely expensive beast. It was built for 34 years, from 64 to 98. There were 32 of these planes built. And the only reason they were created was to provide good surveillance data over the enemy territory, over the territory of the Soviet Union, to find the launch sites and all that, deployment of troops and everything. Extremely costly program, 35 million each aircraft, 400 million per year to sustain the whole park of these aircrafts. And the technology was built to withstand a technological problem. If a missile is fired upon a jet, it has to deal with it. The way this plane dealt with it, it accelerated. It could do 3 Machs, it flies faster than a bullet, and it just outruns the missile. From all the built airplanes, not a single one was ever shot down by an enemy fire. There were malfunctions, though. So the cost of the entire program, it's not officially posted, but I made calculations for sort of the duration of the project, the build costs. It's in the ballpark of $7 to $8 billion US, which is not very far from the cost of the Apollo mission to land on the moon. Very expensive, solves the problem. But there are other ways. So when you have an enemy, another way of dealing with this situation is to change the ecosystem. So after the Second World War, what the United States were doing for all the countries involved in the conflict is pumping extremely high level of funds into these countries, and unofficially, it's called the Marshall Plan, officially European Recovery Program, and all countries were invited to benefit from it. In total, $13 billion went into it in post-war prices, so a little bit higher than the cost of building SR-71s. And that really did change the whole ecosystem. It brought a lot of countries into the sphere of common economical cooperation, and the European economies synchronized with the US economies, and it created an amicable and dynamic relationship. And Germany was a troublesome country before that. It started the First World War because it was humiliated. It started the Second World War, and Marshall Plan did change that. So by employing economical measures, you can change the environment in such a way that it becomes safer. And that is what I am going to talk to you about today. For computer security, when we have a problem like malware, we don't need to just look for technological solution. Let's look at some alternatives and build ecosystems in a safer way so that the bad players would be punished and they would feel economic pressure. So we'll take a look at the costs and rewards in the cybercrime area. We'll look at the technologies that can exert more economic pressure and less economic pressure, and specifically look at 4 different technologies. One old, digital signatures, also known as authentic code in Windows. Another one, which is new, it's digital signing of software in mobile ecosystems. One which is emerging, it's pretty fresh, but live, IEEE tag-on system for packed software. And the final one, which is just at the drawing board stage, is Clean Software Alliance. If you mind me saying, before Virus Bulletin, there were 2 days of CSA meetings right here in Prague to formalize how the Clean Software Alliance would work. And it is an ecosystem where we are hoping to punish bad behaviors. So the problem that we are trying to solve is technological. Internet, it unbalanced security. The cost of intrusion is very low. You can do it across the borders. You can do it remotely to somebody's machines. And the rewards are high. If you happen to steal some sensitive data, some very costly secrets, it's a lot of money. So the cost and reward balance is just wrong. We need to solve that. And the way to solve it is not just by pumping new technology into our products, into our solutions. We can do it in a different way. So if we have a program, the simplest solution is to blacklist by hash. Very cheap for anti-malware companies. Probably even cheaper for the bad guys to defeat. You can do various fingerprinting methods. So it's a bit harder for the bad guys to circumvent, but again, not that difficult. So to put a little bit more pressure on that, we can look at behaviors of the software. We can look at distribution methods. We can block domains, URLs. We can recognize spam campaigns that carry malware. It's a bit more expensive for the bad guys to change their domains because they have to pay a little money for creating a new domain. They may have to hire a new botnet to use a different spam campaign. It is a little bit harder for them, but still not too much. We can block exploits that allow them to penetrate computers. It is a little bit higher for them to find new exploits. But ultimately, what was found to be a very effective method is the reputation of developers, the software sources, software houses. So when we know that software came from Microsoft, if it's digitally signed, most of the anti-malware companies would implicitly trust it. And they don't even look further. Similar methods can be applied to the identity of individual developers, not just companies. And reputation can be built of individual developers, which can be done very effectively in mobile ecosystems. So authentic code in Windows works very well. Anti-malware companies using it a lot. And the way to access it is to right-click on any binary in Windows, then go into digital signatures, and you see something like that, which is a screenshot of an executable which tells you the source, the time when it was created, the signing time, and the whole chain of trust, and you can drill into the exact certificate and all that. So you have the origin of the program, and if that origin is not good, which is not the case for this particular binary, you can blacklist it. That system became very popular, Anti-malware systems are trusting digital signatures, so naturally, the bad guys want to find a way around it, and it's not easy, because they have to steal credentials for signing binaries. Nevertheless, the numbers of signed malware and adware are growing, and they're actually pretty high. That graph shows how rapidly that problem was accelerating. Once the bad guys recognized that digital signing is a valuable property of executables, they started attacking it. And current numbers are exceeding 50 million of signed binaries. It's malware and also unwanted software here. The cost of such certificate is $75 per year, and don't mix it up with SSL certificates, which are $25 per year. They're actually the same, but the properties on the certificate are slightly different. So, this graph I borrowed from my colleagues at Bitdefender. It was shown a year ago at Virus Bulletin in Seattle. It's showing the statistics of how often malware is stealing certificates. And that's the way the bad guys attack that problem. If they are after certificates, they instructed their malware to steal them, deliver to them, and then they can use them for digital signing. And quite a lot of popular certificates were compromised, and compromised this way. So that's the response of malware guys. We can see that it's not easy for them, and there is no guarantee that they would actually steal any particular certificate that they are after. It's creating cost for them, it's creating delays for them, so it puts some pressure on them, and it's a good thing. So another ecosystem that I want to describe to you is the mobile ecosystem and developers in mobile ecosystems. And there are, I would like to say, 3 different mobile ecosystems. You normally think about Apple's iOS and Google's Android, but in reality, Android is split. One part of Android ecosystem is Google Play, which is tightly controlled by Google, and another part of the ecosystem is third-party markets, which is completely uncontrolled by Google. So you can't say Android as one ecosystem. There are actually 2. So in total, we have 3: iOS, Android, and uncontrolled Android, if you will. In Android ecosystem, developers sign their binaries, submit to, for example, Google Play, and these are self-signed, but because they're weighted by Google, it essentially works as counter-signature by the root certificate. The problem with Android ecosystem is that because software is free, developers tend to embed adware libraries, which generates a little bit of money for them. So the code that they ship and sign contains often some alien code, which may be misbehaving. And often, if developer is particularly greedy, they could bundle 5 or 6 of these advertisement libraries, which is obviously not a good idea. So the cost of misbehavior in these 3 ecosystems, in iOS and Android and outside of Google Play for Android, it's shown on this slide, and we see an interesting correlation. In iOS, the cost of misbehavior is high. It's $99. That's how much a developer pays to join the development program for Apple. And the malware problem there is negligible. There are some attacks, but they don't happen very often. In Google Play, developer pays $25, and the malware problem there exists, but it's under control. It's relatively low. And in third-party markets, outside of control, when developers don't have to pay anything, the problem is very serious. There are infested marketplaces. In fact, our own crawlers know that some third-party markets are predominantly used to host malware. So that's a big problem there. And as you can see, there is reverse correlation between the cost of misbehavior and the scale of malware problem in these areas. And what's nice for malware developers in Android is that they can start outside of Google Play, and then when they feel confident, then they can upgrade themselves to Google Play. Pay a little bit more, but have a much wider distribution. So now let's look at the malware problem and the Tagan system. We know that malware is comprised of at least 60% of packed executables, obfuscated, and some packers are very difficult to look inside. And to recognize something generically, to put more pressure on the bad guys, one needs to do it quickly and effectively. And it's not possible to look inside these obfuscated programs very quickly. So what we started is the Tagan problem. Many of you have heard about Tagans, but for those who don't, here is the explanation from the Wikipedia what a Tagant is. It's a chemical mark often put in explosives to track it to the factory, which helps in forensic investigation of, for example, terrorist attacks when something blew up. So the Tagant, now we call it Tagant V1, was first conceived in 2009-2010 by a group of security companies in IEEE ICSG, which stands for Industry Connections Security Group. It's a digital signature or blob attached to PE or DLL. It's all documented in previous VB conferences, so you can look it up in more detail. It carries information about who packed the file, what the packer is, what version and settings were used, and when the file was packed. And it's a trusted signature. And it uses cryptographically strong hash and timestamp. PKI certs are rooted into IEEE. The system works like a typical PKI hierarchy with IEEE root on top, so you have to put it upside down to view it as a tree. Then there is a shared CA, which issues certificates to all the packer companies, and these are individual installations of packers. When one of them misbehaves or gets compromised or purchased with a stolen credit card, it gets blacklisted, and security companies can block it. The benefit for security companies is that once they know of one particular case of abuse, then they can block everything which comes from that source. And the bad guys will have to purchase another copy or steal another copy, which puts some pressure on them. That's the idea about the Tagan system and how to change that ecosystem. The system is live, and that statistics are coming from the sample database that we keep at Intel Security and covers almost 1 year. First numbers were very low from the early takers, and now it's reaching about 10,000 per month, which is not a huge amount yet, but it's growing, and the main sources are these 4 packers. With the help of guys from VirusTotal, we deployed recognition of Tagans into VirusTotal. So if you have a file with a Tagant, if you follow a file information tab, you can find the packer details there, and it tells you whether the Tagant block is valid, whether the full file hash is valid, the PKI chain, the type of packer, when it was timestamped, and whether it's trusted, the validity of the signature for a particular user, so the installation, specific installation of a packer, and they are all unique, and they all carry individual certificates. And the packer vendor, which in this case is Enigma. So you can use it. And it's live at VirusTotal for a couple of months now. The economics of Tagant version 1 system is that it hits the malware industry economically. They cannot use evaluation versions anymore, which are free, because we agreed with the packer companies that these would be pre-blacklisted. Before they release a new evaluation version, they give us a certificate used in it, we blacklist it. So software companies that want to use a packer can run all the testing, compatibility testing, but for production use, they're supposed to purchase a proper copy, not evaluation one, because evaluation one will block that malware by design. Otherwise, there would be no pressure on the bad guys. And reputation in this system can be built, which also helps put additional pressure on the bad guys, because then they would be also interested in stealing credentials for more reputable developers and their installation of packers, which is harder, more expensive. The system allows fine-grained control by files, like we did in the past, by sources, and you know when that source produced a file through a trusted timestamp, and by types and package versions. The whole research of that ecosystem was done by Professor Arun Lahotia in University of Louisiana, and here is the link if you are interested also in the paper in the proceedings. And now, the fourth ecosystem that we look at is the one which is currently on the drawing board. It's software monetization and advertising, also known as Clean Software Alliance. There is a lot of money in software advertising. And that's how much money. But software monetization ecosystem is smaller, of course, because previous slide included just digital advertisements as well. Software advertisements are a little bit less than that, but there are lots of smaller companies that offer you free software and offer you bundles, and they are sometimes very aggressive. They want to install a toolbar and control your internet searches and block the competitors, and they do it to various extent, and that should be regulated. The problem with this space is that the most aggressive players are not getting punished, and those who want to abide by the rules have to compete with them. So the CSA's goal was to create a set of rules and establish them in this ecosystem so that bad behaviors would be punished. The guidelines were created, and the technological support for checking whether the guidelines are followed will come from the new version of the Taggant system, so-called Taggant v2. There are lots of software types in this ecosystem. There are final installations, there are downloaders that include several software packages. There are static advertisement modules and also dynamic advertisement modules, including scripts and HTMLs, lots and lots of different things. The problem is that when you have a binary on the endpoint at the end of all that chain, it's almost impossible to track it back to the source. And what we tried to do with the Taggant version v2 is to cover all the use cases in this ecosystem and even have some additional leeway for the future to expand it onto other use cases, which I'll mention. So the features of the Taggant v2 system is that it's an extension of v1. It has a mechanism to track the chain of custody over a binary, from a developer to a bundler to download provider and whoever else is in that chain. You can put the first Taggant on the first step, the second Taggant on the second step, and like a stack of pancakes, they'll add up because they're just appended at the end. And it all works, and even works in conjunction with Taggant v1. Another important thing is that in each Taggant you can include a contributor list. So if a developer is creating a program and uses some external libraries, they can list which particular software modules are used, and that would be contained within a Taggant. And you can build reputations based on not just the whole binary, but on its elements. And if it's properly described in a Taggant, then you have ability to fine-tune your reputation and trust levels to the binary based on its components. The CSA bundle often comes from many places, so that's very important for this kind of use. Also, CSA bundles contain scripts, and often these scripts come from the internet dynamically, and the new Taggant v2 has an ability to handle not just binary objects, but also textual objects, script objects, HTMLs, and things like even Flash and pictures. And additionally, the flexibility should allow us in near future to expand and cover the APKs for Android, the installation packages, and cover the problem in Android where the developer's code is mixed with the advertisement library. Once that Tagant v2 is slapped onto a file, and the idea for CSA is to have a central vetting authority which would put that full Tagant information onto the binary with all the metadata, it would allow attributing misbehavior to a specific person who misbehaved. And that creates economic pressure and significant financial penalties for CSA members should they choose to violate the rules. So, in conclusion, we looked at 4 different ecosystems, and there are many more. And obviously, when you create a new ecosystem, you can put safeguards which would make it very hard and very expensive for the bad guys to break. One example is, for example, Microsoft Xbox. It's ridiculously difficult to break in. There were just a handful of proofs of concept how to violate the security of an Xbox. And that's all achieved through digital signing, full chain of trust from booting to the operating system. And PKI methods, trust and reputation are the most useful mechanisms for putting the pressure on the bad guys. It would throttle mass-produced malware and unwanted software and regulate markets like CSA wants to regulate. But unfortunately, it wouldn't help with government-sponsored and targeted malware because these guys are slightly after different things. Cost for them is a different matter. They might even get government funding, which is potentially unlimited. I mean, if we take an example, again, returning to my first slide of SR-71, the cost of the program was in billions. And that's how much governments are willing to pay for learning secrets of others. Our ecosystem methods built on PKIs, digital signatures, trust, reputation would help. And I urge you, when you get involved in building new ecosystems like Internet of Things or embedded devices or aircraft software, to think how to build a system in such a way that the cost of breaking it would be as high as possible. And that's all I had to say. So if you have any questions, I guess over to Jeanette.
Yeah, thank you, Igor. Are there any questions for Igor? Okay, please wait for the microphone.
Hello. I would like to ask you a question about the cost of misbehavior in case of Tagant. Because currently buying authentic code certificate costs, as you show, somewhere around $20–25. And that's another interesting thing, that many of these bad certificates came from one source, and it's Komodo. And another question is, what is the punishment for the certificate authority which does not follow some rules, like checking the ID of the signer they want to issue the certificate?
Okay, in the Tagant system, the question was how we make sure that in the Tagant system the cost is effective, so to speak. Currently, it's free for the bad guys to repack an executable. We put a non-zero cost on it. So once they abuse a particular installation, they have to purchase another one. Currently, they just rerun that packer again. So that's introducing non-zero cost and introduces a manual action. You have to go and purchase or steal or move stolen certificate or stolen credit card into the new system to purchase a new installation. So that introduces a non-zero cost. If a particular packer vendor is abusing the system very often, they will be, of course, kicked out of the system. And there is a possibility technologically to blacklist everything that comes from that source, not just user installations, but also the higher level packer provider. But we did not regulate how much the packer vendors have to charge their users for the packing. That might come later if we see how the system operates in real life, whether cheaper packers in the Tagon system are less effective and more attacked than the others. Does that answer your question? Thank you.
Okay, we're out of time now, so will you join me in thanking Igor for his great